Hello, welcome to Carrow Road, where unfortunately Norwich City have fallen to 2-1 defeat to Wolves, and it's kind of the same old story from the last time we were here, when a lead was thrown away against Sheffield United. The game before that as well, they were twice in front against Arsenal but drew 2-2. They lost 2-1 to Sheffield United, with conceding both goals in the second half, and it's happened again this afternoon. Unfortunately, 2 goals in the second half mean that Norwich lose, and with Southampton winning 3-1 at Aston Villa, they're now 6 points adrift, so it's pretty painful, and you'd have a heart of steel not to feel sorry for the Norwich players this evening. Just a few days before Christmas, they were fantastic in the first half, really good. Wolves could have absolutely no complaints about being 1-0 behind at the break, but the problem was Norwich didn't take enough of their chances. They literally had enough to be 5-0 up at half time. I'm not saying they should have been 5-0 up, but they had the chances, so that was painful. But before we go into that, unfortunately, since the full-time whistle has blown here, we've heard more sad news following on from the deaths of Duncan Forbes and Ron Saunders recently. Martin Peters, widely, I've heard several Norwich fans during my life say was the best player that ever played for Norwich City, has passed away. West Ham officially confirmed that today. He played for the club between 1975 and 1980, of course, was a World Cup winner and really a massive legend with West Ham. He won Player of the Season here in 1976 and 77, 44 goals in 232 appearances, and a hugely popular player. And unfortunately, as I say, following so soon after Duncan Forbes and Ron Saunders passing away, that's really sad news just before. So I'm sure many tributes will flow in. I believe, although I haven't had the opportunity to check, that Martin is another victim of dementia, sadly, which is clearly a wider problem for that generation of footballers. So there's going to be much said about that, and such sad news for his family just a few days ahead of Christmas. So that's kind of put even more of a sour note on the day. To reflect on the actual performance, Norwich, as I say, had lots of chances first half. Kenny McLean was denied by Rui Patricio early doors. Alex Tettey had a shot tipped onto the post by the Portugal goalkeeper as well. 2 very important saves, but the Canaries got the lead that they deserved in the 17th minute. Todd Cantwell sparked the move by spreading the ball to the left to Kenny McLean. His low shot caused a little bit of pinball, and then Johnny's unfortunate poor touch allowed Cantwell to finish into sort of an unguarded net, because Patricio was wrong-footed and could just slot in from about 10 yards. And the atmosphere was fantastic. This place was really bouncing, because I tweeted at half-time that was possibly the best half of football Norwich had produced this season. They were so composed, controlled. The attacking play was brilliant. The only change Daniel Farke had made was that one that we were expecting, with Grant Hanley coming back into central defence in place of the injured Ben Godfrey. Him and Christoph Zimmermann had a positive day on the whole. I think Hanley will be particularly pleased with his work, and he completed the 90 minutes as well, so that was important. And before the break, Teemu Pukki also had 2 opportunities which you would normally expect him to be converting. 9 goals in the Premier League already this season. You don't need me to repeat all those facts and figures yet again about how good Pukki is. But twice played through by gorgeous through balls from Emi Buendia, who was sensational, particularly in the first half. He was the best player on the pitch by a mile. First one, Pukki fires low, and Patricio just gets a little touch on it to poke it wide, and the second one really should have been 2-0 just before the break, but Pukki just sort of didn't make contact with it, and Patricio was able to sort of flop on it just before his line. And whether that fractured toe has affected his finishing today, I'm not sure, but it goes into the break, Norwich leading 1-0, but it should be at the very least 2-0. And as I said at the top of this video, obviously everyone's thoughts at half-time are then, Sheffield United, Arsenal, are they going to be able to do it? And interestingly, at half-time, we saw the Norwich players come out and run through a bit of a quick exercise routine to warm them up, which is exactly what Sheffield United had done at the start of the second half. So as much as that's maybe a bit of a PR move to sort of show the fans that they are well on it, and I'm sure all the words at half-time will have been that they can't let that happen again, but unfortunately they did. On the hour mark, short corner routine, which hadn't worked out very much for Wolves in the first half, but basically João Moutinho was trying to increase his angle of delivery for the corners, and this time it worked. He curled a lovely ball to the back post where Sam Byram was outnumbered, and Samu Saiz was able to header pretty easily into the back post. Byram out jumped, and all the tall players, Hanley, Zimmerman, etc., are all in the middle battling with the other players. So Byram was outnumbered, had little chance, and that's 1-1, and as you can imagine, that just punctures the mood. All of a sudden the away fans spring into life and they're having a great away day, and the nerves setting on the pitch as well. Byram played Hanley into a really difficult position where he was in trouble in his own box, really. I doubt he thanked Sam for that much at all, but thankfully Raul Jimenez curled that one over the bar, and Jimenez was awful, I thought. Mexican international, has scored, I think he'd already scored 6 goals so far this season. Almost as bad as Joe Ellington was here for Newcastle, I would say. He just looked like he couldn't be bothered most of the game, but remember that name. Ruben Neves had also thumped just wide as Norwich regressed, really. It was panic stations by this point. Daniel Farke did make a triple substitution, but with only 5 minutes left, Vrancic, Hernandez, Srebeni, they all came on for Teti, Tribal and Campbell, which was probably too late to affect things by that point. But at 1-1, Farke was probably thinking, we've played well here, we can hold out for the draw. So there's mitigation. But 81st minute, that man that I mentioned, Jimenez, who I really did think was probably the worst player on the pitch. Their substitute Neto had come on. He played a nice 1-2 with João Moutinho around Max Aaron, so he was in behind in that right back position. Low cross comes in. Krul makes a good save from Matt Doherty, but the ball then just bounces kindly for Jimenez in acres of space near the penalty spot to tuck into what is essentially an unguarded net again. And some people got up and left their seats. They were just so frustrated by it. It was cruel on the Norwich players to have played so well in the first half. It really, really was. Cruel is the word, and it must be so frustrating for them. They're so close to being good enough at this level and to getting results and getting more points, but that's 5 of the last 6 games that they've had the lead. They've only taken 5 points from a possible 18, the only win being at Everton. So it's a really, really tough spell for Norwich, and Daniel Farke must be hurting, because there's no denying that they're working hard, and the set piece issues, they dealt with lots of them in the first half. They looked compact and it was working, but Wolves are clearly a very good team. They're in the Europa League knockout stages. They'd only just seen an 11-game unbeaten run ended in the Premier League, and late on in terms of chances, there was one, the one that stands out really was Teemu Pukki, edge of the box, fired low, and Patricio again was there in the right place to land on it. He connected with that well, but the keeper held it well enough, and Tim Krul even came up for a corner right at the end, and there was a bit of hope, but Wolves wound down the clock fairly well, and they held out for their win, which is so painful for Norwich. I mean, just looking at the stats, Norwich had 13 shots, Wolves 14, but Norwich had 7 of theirs on target to Wolves' 4. Wolves had 11 corners to Norwich's 4. So, if they'd have played like that against Watford or against Southampton, particularly Watford, they surely would have won, because they were infinitely better today than they were in that 2-0 defeat to Watford on that horrible Friday night. It's a real tough spell for Norwich, and things are looking bleak in terms of their survival prospects. Of course, there is still time to do it, but they're now getting into the realms of where they're going to need to win a couple of games back to back, maybe 2 or 3 times, something like that. They're really going to need to build a serious amount of momentum at some point during the second half of the season. The halfway point arrives at full time at Villa Park on Boxing Day, and that's going to be an interesting one now as well, of course, because Villa losing 3-1 in the relegation zone, 3 points adrift. Dean Smith is going to be under heavy pressure, and with the amount of money their owners have got, I can't see them waiting around to pull the trigger too much, so he can't afford another defeat. But Norwich players, I guess, have just got to try and enjoy their Christmas a little bit, try and shake this one off, and then pitch up at Villa Park, try and summon up some of that spirit from the final day of last season when they wrapped up the title there with that 2-1 win, and see if they can do something to tee up that second half of the season with more hope. thank you very much for watching, as ever throughout this season. Really appreciate it, and I hope you have a nice Christmas and are able to shake off the defeat yourselves. Me, Paddy, Connor and Tony will of course be at Villa Park to let you know what's going on. I know you guys can watch that one on Amazon if you're Prime subscribers, so if you want to follow us with your second screen, then please do, and we will catch up with you then again here with back-to-back Carrow Road games against Tottenham and Crystal Palace. It doesn't get any easier at this level. A frustrating day, but all hope is not lost. There was enough encouragement in that first half to still be able to cling on to some hope, but they've got to start winning some games very soon. Have a great Christmas. We'll see you soon.